Okay, College Prep English for homeschoolers at Excellence in Education. On March 17th, we're up and going, and we're starting with an oral presentation. Let's bring up the microphone.
Thank you. Now, let me start off by saying there are biblical scriptures that support what I'm saying, but for the sake of remaining secular, I decided not to include them. Well, this is my oral reporting presentation on the topic is intelligent design. On your paper, you have a list of definitions, and the main key terms.
On whose paper?
On the paper, right here.
Oh, I see. Okay. Yeah, and you've handed it out. Wonderful.
Yes.
Do I get a copy?
When studying intelligent design, these phrases are going to be coming up over and over again. Darwinism, which is the theory of evolution and of species by the process of natural selection, and of course by Charles Darwin. And then evolution is described as the gradual development of an organism from something simple to more complex in order to benefit its survivability. And then it does this through the process of natural selection, which is the process whereby organisms are better adapted to their environment and so they can survive and produce more offspring. And that is believed to be the main process of evolution. And then the last term you'll be hearing is intelligent design, which is the theory that life or the universe cannot have arisen by chance and was designed and created by some intelligent entity. It's just the idea of it. Now, just like evolution is an idea, this is also an idea, but the evolutionists, they don't like to think of it as an idea. They like to think of it as a biased, well, they like to think of it as just being biased and has no meaning and cannot be supported at all. But there are numerous examples of this. I will only be going into a couple. One is the zebra and the Venus flytrap.
Oh.
I'm sure you've all heard of both of those. No. For the zebra, no one can really explain the stripes that it has, from stripes that go vertical on the body to horizontal on the legs. Most people have hypothesized and came to the conclusion, and Darwinists and evolutionists agree with this, that the zebra stripes are thought to help it with camouflage in the grass. But, however, a recent study which was conducted by Mellon, Caro, and colleagues, Donald Klein and Chihiro Hiramatsu, these are professors and people who've been studying this. They came to the conclusion that the stripes are ineffective on the zebra. Now, this is because if a predator such as a lion or any animal that were near a zebra, it would have already heard it, smelt it, or seen it by then. Now, that has been supported, and a common argument that in order to hold this conclusion a little bit, the Darwinists came out and saying, oh, well, it's also there to repel bug bites or something. And if that were the case, then, well, why don't all animals have stripes? And you see, the pattern is very unique. Just like cats. Not all cats are black. Some cats are white. Some cats are piebald or spotted. And Yeah. And then the last, this is very interesting. The Venus flytrap, it is, I would say, is one of the most recognized carnivorous plants, meaning everybody knows about it. It's your it's your Venus flytrap from Super Mario Bros. That you're playing. It you get close to it and it'll eat you. Now, how the Venus flytrap works is, well, it has these hair triggers. It has 6 of them that, when they're triggered, it sends out an electric signal, and this has been proven and confirmed by scientific researchers in Germany, and where they explain how it works. And each trigger, well, when triggered, it's called a hair trigger. They send out an electrical signal that starts a countdown. I think the countdown is 16 seconds. And after the hairs have been activated, a timer begins the countdown. And if a second trigger is activated, then the Venus flytrap will shut. So it has to be 2 or more triggers to be activated, because something could brush up on it, or wind, a drop of rain, because they like to live in moist climates and they're commonly found in the rainforest. So after 16 seconds, the countdown will reset. And then if a third activation commences in that time period, the countdown will reset, go back up to 16, and no. If the third hair is triggered, the Venus flytrap, since it's been closed, it will now commence the digestive juices that will digest whatever's inside. And if the fifth, and then because whatever's inside is squirming around, it will trigger a 4th hair or a 5th hair. And all these are potential actions. It could trigger 50 hairs, and at the 5th trigger, the signals will be sent out saying how it needs an increase of nutrients, because it takes a lot out of the flytrap to digest whatever's inside the prey. That's it. Any questions?
Yeah, it's fascinating, your idea. I would really like a bit of a conclusion that draws upon what you have presented in the way of complex operations and complex structures, and draw some conclusions from those complex structures. You haven't really said anything at the end about intelligent design, although you've described in depth the complexity and presumably the intelligence that has gone into a specific design, but haven't drawn any conclusions about it.
Okay, I can do that right now. For the Venus flytrap, evolution, it's based on the principle of evolving. There's a flaw, so it evolves to make itself. So it increases its chance of survival. Now, where intelligent design comes in on the Venus flytrap is, you have all these components and parts of the Venus flytrap that so evolved. Now, the hair trigger that's the proof of it. It could evolve, but how could it? No, it's a complex system. 16 seconds. It's a timer. Now, evolution just involves the definition, the gradual development of something. It develops and morphs into something it creates. This is a whole new. It's like the Venus flytrap has a conscience to count down 16, 15, 14, 13.
You mean consciousness?
A consciousness, the countdown, which it doesn't have, but it's been already installed into the Venus flytrap. And yeah, well, and for the zebras and basically anything with marvelous patterns like the zebra, like that was mentioned, the studies, they their stripes are ineffective. Their stripes are just a show. Well, I could mention there's a scripture, John, in the book of John. It talks about how you can, if you look at what I've created, then you'll be able to see. And going back to cats, they have a purpose, right? Your
It's not
pet
clear
cat.
that cats have a purpose.
Your pet cat. Well, your cat's here, and how they survive all this time. I wouldn't think it's for the coat they have, because there's proof. You have albino cats. You have, well, through the process of genetics, you have all these different kinds of cats. Now, if the patterns were to help the cat's survival, then all cats would be black, or just to help them with their
I'm still
surroundings.
waiting for the shoe to drop, where you're going to say the fact that there is this massive diversity that doesn't seem to support reproduction somehow implies that there's more at work than natural selection. Isn't that what you're trying to say?
Yes, that's what I'm trying to explain.
Okay.
Natural
good.
selection, it accounts for some of this, but it doesn't account for everything. And there's one more, a complex. Now, one last thing. Evolution, it doesn't have a specific purpose or intent in mind. It just evolves. It takes one step when it needs to take a step. There's this, on a certain type of bacteria, there's this motor that it has on the back that propels it. It's called a flagellum. It has all these, I was thinking about including it, but it's very complex. It has all these different parts, a tail, a motor, a circuit, ring. All these couldn't have evolved because they all come together perfectly, as if it was that was the intent. Evolution couldn't just make one step at a time and somehow by chance create all these different parts that fit together. I'll put a link to the flagellum on the board.
What you're saying is good. You found a lot of good material, but providing the step-by-step logical path to the conclusion you want to draw just isn't quite there.
Okay.
Your audience is stumbling along trying to find it.
Okay.
You see what I mean? Okay, very good, very good. Okay, anybody have any questions?
About anything. So you understand this perfectly? If I ask you something, you would tell me the answer.
Okay, one of the things I would really, I'm sorry, did
Yeah,
you have something? Go ahead.
So in modern days, you know how bacteria are all adapting to all the new, what's it called, antibiotics and all the new vaccines. Would that just be, what would that be classified as?
Well, evolution is classified into two categories, micro and macro evolution. Microevolution is the gradual process and change. The bacteria, they have that, which you just mentioned, is an example of microevolution, while macroevolution is big leaps and changes into a whole new species. Another example of microevolution is when we get sick, our body fights it and builds up an immunity. That's microevolution, same as the bacteria.
So I grew up hearing that zebras had their stripes because in order to confuse predators. And since they live in large herds, it was meant to kind of confuse lions and so forth. What's your opinion on that?
Well, I suppose that, that was the theory then, but new theories have emerged. And for that specific theory, since lions, they hunt and they could hunt in packs and hyenas. And you're right, it can be confusing, but they have more than one sense. Their sense of smell is astonishing, and their hearing is good.
Well,
And if they're in a pack, then they're not really hunting a pack. They try to just catch one individual zebra.
yeah. Well. I mean, what I'm trying to say is that, I mean, since they live in large herds, it's pretty hard to hide. I mean, even if they did have camouflage. So I think it's. I mean, if that is the case where it's supposed to confuse predators, then it'd probably, I guess, to, what's the word I'm looking for? I guess I'm saying that there's strength in numbers, so to speak, in that sense. So I mean, they might get one, but maybe not the one that they originally wanted to target. I guess I'm trying to say, but yeah.
Yeah, there's been all these different theories and hypotheses
Hypotheses. Mhm.
that people have drawn, but now as the research shows, you can look it up yourself. That's not the stripes. That's not the intent of the stripes.
The big thing I'm sort of expecting to hear, though, is that with this complexity and with this variation, there's no way to explain it, or at least it's not easily explainable as the result of random natural selection. You're saying that, in fact, perhaps it's demonstrating perhaps a beauty, it's demonstrating an artistry which goes beyond the pragmatic elements that one would find in natural selection. Is that what you're trying to say?
Yes, that's exactly why the stripes are there.
It's aesthetic.
Yes,
It makes the world a more beautiful place.
yes.
Okay.
I mean, well, flowers, for example. Some flowers are white, some are yellow. They do attract bees. That helps. That helps with pollination. But then, why aren't all flowers very colorful and bright and vibrant like that? Because there are flowers that are very dull, but they have different ways of pollination. It's just a way to, yeah, like Mr. Titchnell said.
Oh, and I have one more question. So about cats. Yeah, again, I've always kind of thought that that the that, like there being white cats or any other kind of color which would stand out in nature was, well, I mean, in domestic cats was because they're a domesticated animal and they probably wouldn't really have to worry as much about camouflage and so forth. There would probably be less natural selection. And also, if you look at wild cats, most of them actually do have kind of gray fur and so forth to help blend in,
Mm-hmm.
which is what they're descended from.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when it comes to domestic cats versus wild cats, with breeding a lot, if you look at you can actually find the probability of coming out with cats different colors, like white or black. I'm not. I don't completely understand your question.
So well, I mean, you pretty much stated what I was trying to say. Is that due to humans, I guess, sort of playing around with the genetics of cats, and also there being probably less natural selection, that's why you have cats who might not blend in as well with their environment. And humans might have wanted for maybe more, maybe they wanted a more prestigious looking cat, and so they wanted to breed some white colored cats, and so forth.
Oh yeah. Well, with anything, there's a chance that yeah, there's a chance for anything. You know, with genetic coding, there's what is the probability that you're gonna come out with a white cat in the wild or a light colored cat? The first snake, a ball python in particular, the first white snake was found in Africa, and it wasn't bred that way. It just happened. It was an accident, so to say. That was the first
I
white
think the
snake.
genetics is fairly well known, and now, of course, we can also examine the DNA itself and see even the relationships between not only different animals, not only different vertebrates, but where the vertebrates connected to the other animals, and even where they connected to plants. We've got this figured out so that there is a tree that's definable at present. But your point is an interesting one. It's one that I'd like to see established a little better. There are some more lectures by David Berlinski. Did you enjoy listening to his
Yes.
material? Let me find some in which, as a mathematician, that's one of his primary areas, although of course he's just so brilliant in so many areas. He applies mathematics to the to evolution, or at least to the supposed evolution of animals, and comes up with some pretty interesting conclusions. The major one being that Darwinism doesn't really explain what we see. There's more to it, at least. Let's find some of that. Okay. Does anybody have any other thoughts on this? Let's go ahead and take a look at things here. Then Brian put in something very nice. I'm tempted to wait and do it when Brian's here.
Thank you.
And Andrew has something nice here. Let's go ahead and go over that. This one is about the impending singularity. And there are a bunch of interesting points to consider here, one of which Kurzweil makes quite clear, and that is we continually think in a linear way. We think as though 5 years equals 5 years. And yet that's not the slope that progress is following when it comes to technological development. And so we may be far from the singularity if we were to think in terms of a year equals a year. But when you realize that we're talking exponentially, and that's the way the technology has been developed, and presumably the way it will continue to develop in the future, and that something will happen in the year 2029, that may well be several magnitudes greater than where we stand right now. Do you understand what I mean by a magnitude?
Yeah.
Okay. So let's take a look at this. Okay, from the language standpoint, you bring up many questions here. This could be very fruitful classroom discussion. Indeed, I think it could. Always read your work aloud. And because the fact is, if we read some of these sentences aloud, you will immediately see what the problem is. But you don't see it easily on the page. At least I find it harder to see on the page. When I read something aloud, I always find things that I didn't see before. Okay, in today's society, we are always striving to make smaller, more efficient, faster computers. Okay, yes, but I like just bracketing that a little bit. Since the first days of computers, we have been striving, indeed. And those first, does anybody know what the first computers were?
What they were?
Yeah,
I
how they
mean,
worked.
They were like the size of houses.
Yeah, they were massive.
Well, they were massive, but how do they work internally? This is actually
I don't know,
discussed
right?
in one of the interviews that you're watching. Charles Babbage came up with the first computer and indeed the first sword program concept together with Ada Lovelace. And his analytical engine, as he called it, which was to run on steam, was entirely mechanical, and yet it had a stored program concept in it. It never ran, but the idea was there. And this was in the mid-19th century. And then in Germany, there was a fellow named Konrad Zuse who came up with a stored program concept digital computer, but it was electromechanical rather than electrical. It used telephone switching relays, and it actually did work.
Yeah.
But it didn't go anywhere, and it didn't influence anybody because the German high command wasn't interested in it and scrapped the project.
Wow.
Yeah, and much of our computing developed from the fact that the Second World War demanded certain calculations to be done. Some of which, did anybody see the program on Turing, Alan Turing? It was a movie that came out last year or the year before.
I think I
I'm
did.
trying to remember the name of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, it was played by Benedict Cumberbatch. Alan Turing was a major player in developing a computer that broke the German code, and that had a lot to do with bringing the war to an end.
I saw a documentary on it on the Discovery Channel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so but that was a very special purpose computer. What was its fundamental mechanism?
Wasn't it digital?
It was digital and it was electronic, but it was very slow compared to what we use now, and it was very special purpose. It was not a general purpose computer. It couldn't be reprogrammed. Then it was John von Neumann who came along with the concept of this the stored program concept. Now this was discussed by Kurzweil in that video, and it was essentially independent. Now, John von Neumann has done so many other things, and he was the one who came up with the name singularity when it came to applying it to that eventual state that we will reach in technological development. Remember that from the video, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so then we got to computers that were running on tubes, and then eventually in the 60s, although the transistor was developed in 1948, in the 60s we got computers that were running on transistors. But from that point on, with each transistor being a single electrical component, then being able to put hundreds, then thousands, then millions of electrical components onto a single chip. That's been the history of hardware ever since. Okay, so let's take a look at this. This is an interesting point here where you say, take over us.
Mm-hmm.
In English, we don't like that. It's uncomfortable. And the reason is you're using a pronoun. And you're not allowed to use a pronoun that way. If you use a noun, take over the world, but take over us, take over me, no. Then it would be to take us over. We always want to hide that pronoun inside the sentence instead of having it at the very end. I can't tell you why, but English just likes that. And so I switched it around. We are now at an age where the use of the word where as a relative pronoun irks me, because most of the time we're not talking about a place. We're not talking about geographical locations. If we are, where is perfectly appropriate. If we're talking about time, when makes more sense than where, right? Now, you could say we are now at a point where, because there we're sort of establishing a geographical point and using the where for that. AI has become feasible, or soon, not really, it hasn't got yet, but I made it into is becoming feasible, or soon, or will soon be feasible. And indeed, as Kurzweil pointed out, the best chess player in the world is now a computer.
Mm-hmm.
And we've also got the best Jeopardy player in the world, a computer. And that was very impressive when you think about it. When I was in college in the 70s, we had a debate in this philosophy of science class. Would a computer ever be able to play chess at a high level? Now, you realize the computers at the time were massive objects running Fortran on punched cards. This was a different world, but still the theory is, could they happen? Then when I was teaching computers in the 90s, indeed, the Big Blue computer did beat Garry Kasparov, the #1 chess player in the world, and that was a major milestone, and they have continued to improve since then. Okay, well, this is, let's see, where are we here? Programs like there are no doubt scary. I'm sorry, I missed that. Obviously, this is a typo. You meant programs like these are no doubt scary. But at the end of the day, they still need to be controlled by humans. Yes, that's true, at least at present.
Yeah.
What they're going to do in the future is a completely different question. Whether one program is going to tell other programs what to do, this is perfectly possible, just as we have layers and layers of software in a machine like this. We've got the applications, which actually do something for us, but those applications have this enormous array of tools provided to them by the operating system. Things like, here's the operating system has sending stuff to the disk, sending stuff to the printer, manipulating things in one way or another. So we've got layers of different things. Perfectly possible at some point to have a layer that determines at a high level what the lower level computing is to do. And I throw in this other factor, and I think this is a big one. Unlike traditional weapons, weaponized software can be isolated, contained, and deployed by a victim against its original developer. Development of devastating software could be a major mistake. This is true. I mean, if you've got a tank out in the running around, it's possible, I suppose, that the enemy could disassemble it and rework it and try to come up with one, but that's a lot of work involved.
Yeah.
However, grabbing a weaponized piece of software and then adapting it to your own purposes, that's fairly easy to do. And that's dangerous. We're producing some really nasty stuff and putting it out where it could be used by anybody who finds it. Okay, here's a run-on sentence. These are important to, let's get rid of this thing. These are important to recognize and understand. This is a whole sentence here. In order to have true AI, scientists and engineers, that should be plural there, would have to create a computer that's able to make revisions to its own code without human intervention. This is absolutely true, and that's a big question. This would no doubt be a massive achievement, period. This is a full sentence. And then you go on with a completely separate sentence. It, however, may not necessarily be a good one. Okay, now the solution there, of course, is put a period here, start new sentence, or use a semicolon.
Okay.
And another way to do it would be to combine them into the same sentence with simply a relative pronoun by saying this would no doubt be a massive achievement, which, however, might not necessarily be a good one. Okay, so we got 3 different ways we could fix that. Okay, then we have, this one is not an English comment. This is a semantic comment. It could theoretically begin to solve all of man's problems with only a fraction of the testing, hypothesizing, and failing that our scientists constantly have to go through. Make that scientists plural. We need that. And you're absolutely right there. And this is beautifully put together. I like the testing, hypothesizing, and failing. You've got that triplet there. Yes.
Constantly versus continuously.
That's a good question. Continuous is without interruption. Constant is close to being the same thing, but there's a slight flavor of difference in the meaning. I don't think it really matters very much. My point here is I listened to Kurzweil speaking, and he is awfully optimistic, not about the capabilities necessarily. I think he's probably right there, but about how they're likely to be used. He's assuming that if we gain this incredible capability of thinking machines, that they're actually going to have an agenda which is benign and good for the world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's kind of weird.
Yeah, I mean, he's saying it could solve world hunger. We could solve world hunger right now if we wanted to.
Yeah.
There really is no interest in doing so.
So much waste.
Yeah.
That's the first thing.
Terrible waste. And so the question is always, who's going to be developing this software, and what is it going to be doing? Do you remember the rules of robotics that Asimov came up with? Probably heard about those. Basically, the idea that if you develop a robot, the robot is not allowed to harm a human being, or by inaction to allow a human being to come to harm. The robot is not allowed to allow itself to come to harm unless that would be breaking the first rule. Basically, the idea that robots are supposed to be acting in the best interest of human beings. Yeah. Do you think that weaponized robots on the battlefield are given that set of rules?
Yeah, I don't think so.
Okay.
Probably not.
I think the drones that are going out and surveilling and sometimes even being used as weapons don't really have that code in them.
Exactly, and the question is, who's going to be developing the software?
Drones are more of a tool. It's just
yeah, that's true. It is
it's
being
basic.
controlled by the human most of the time.
Yeah, it's being controlled. It's basically, well, you have a body that contains a couple missiles in it, right? Propellers and, well, an antenna or wire. That's pretty much it.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty much someone driving it for it.
At present, it does seem to be remotely operated, but autonomy is one of the things everyone is working on.
Yeah.
And so it's just a simple step towards creating something that functions autonomously. Okay, wherever you see the exclamation point, that implies, yes, that looked nice. Okay, let's look and see what's going on with this word. At this point, the question of whether artificial intelligence should be created gets asked. Good. The problem may be, the problem many people have with artificial intelligence is that they fear it will take over the world. At first, this seems like a pedantic question to ask. I'm not sure what you meant, but I don't think.
Well, I meant kind of like a far out or a stupid question to ask, but I wanted to kind of use something that was not such a basic word.
Okay. How about fatuous?
Okay.
I was listening to Trump the other day. He was
me
talking
too.
about language, and this was interesting. And he was talking about the importance of the word "stupid." don't dumb it down by using more complex expressions. Just call it what it is. I'm sorry, I like fatuous better. I
Mhm.
much more highly of someone who's capable of using fatuous, inane, asinine, idiotic. Uh, there's so many wonderful words for that sort of thing.
Mhm.
But pedantic isn't one of them.
Okay.
Pedantic applies to a pedant, someone who is overly concerned with scholarship.
Oh,
And that might be turned around and used the other way about someone who uses a term other than stupid.
mhm.
Okay. See, but once the facts are taken into account, comma, money, or what is comes the possibility of a computer takeover seems theoretical. Okay. Excellent vaticination. I'm sure you looked up the word vaticination.
Do that right now.
Okay. Okay, nicely done. Nice little piece here, and I think there are all kinds of things we could end up discussing when it comes to the set of developments that is really happening so rapidly,
Mhm.
and there's an immense amount of money and resources going into this field, largely in this country, in the military, and exactly where it's really going, it's a little hard to know. But our military has realized, of course, that I shouldn't personify the military. There are people involved in it. But the fact is that for a number of decades, our dominance in the world has relied upon our ability to put aircraft wherever we'd like to have it very rapidly, and to bring a tremendous amount of force anywhere in the world. However, that's done only with an enormous amount of money, an enormous amount of investment, because we're talking about millions of dollars of aircraft.
Yeah.
If on the other side of the battle you have perhaps thousands of $200 drones running around, our traditional response to that is not going to be efficient. And so there's a lot of interesting development taking place there.
Mhm.
Oh, and for the AI, if we're going to have a debate, does anybody here truly believe that computers will take over? Or just gain any of the capabilities that we've been discussing?
I wouldn't say I believe it, but it's something that we should look at, because 20 years ago, nobody thought the internet would be anything. And now it's used in our daily lives. People can barely put down their phones.
So 20 years
Yeah.
ago, I thought it was going to be something.
Well, a lot of people didn't.
You should have invested.
farther back.
If there were shares going around, you should have.
Yeah.
It's not something that really lent itself to shares. I wrote a book on it. And actually, I remember going into the bookstore at one point and trying to find books on the internet, and found one little bit of a shelf at one point. And then within a matter of a few years, it was an entire row. It really developed rapidly, but at
Yeah.
one point there was not much to be said about it.
Yeah.
And there wasn't a browser out there yet. You had Gopher and Telnet and fascinating, interesting things, but we didn't have the power tool that we currently use with it. And even that has gone through an awful lot of evolution.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see here. Any other thoughts on this particular issue? You asked how many people really think
Yeah.
that it's going to.
It's a.
I think Kurzweil's probably got a pretty good handle on the capabilities and the trajectory that those capabilities will take. And it's important to understand that he's taking exponentiation into account in his projections, which is a reasonable thing to do based on the trajectory that we've seen in the past. Therefore, it's very difficult for us to see it because we're talking about something that's going to crush down on us more and more rapidly as we approach it.
But yeah, it's really hard to tell with something like that because there's nothing has ever been developed like it. Every computer program's has to have been controlled by humans, and so it's kind of like looking into a black hole. Nobody really knows what's there or what's going to happen when we actually cross the threshold.
Speaking of black holes,
Yeah.
let's go back to our assignment page. Well, not back to, we haven't even been there yet today. All right. The online feeds seem this week to work. Last week it was in a strange state. By the way, does anybody know when Easter break takes place?
Spring break?
Yeah, not those next week.
Next week, yeah.
Okay, it's a good idea if we know that this week, so
Right.
that we plan
So
around
is
it.
there no class next week?
Yeah, I think it is next week.
Okay, I will check
Yeah.
that out before we
Next week.
disband.
You know,
today.
it's an interesting topic. Maybe we can discuss this in class. Did you guys know that? I don't know how the mathematics, but space actually has a border, and it's continuing to expand. How?
I think it's more
How's that
complex
possible?
than that. But you're right. You're right. It's not as though it actually has a border as such. There isn't.
Well, it does. If something's expanding, then
It
it has
seemed
a border.
obvious to me.
Something that's infinite doesn't expand.
Yeah, it seemed obvious to me at one point that if we know exactly when the Big Bang took place, we should be able to calculate the size of space because nothing travels faster than the speed of light. How far can light have traveled in 14 billion years? But it turns out that's not true. When you listen to, or study, presumably, I prefer to listen to them, the great astrophysicists right now who are talking about this, they're saying that space itself expanded, and that's not the same as exceeding the speed of light, because it's not the speed of light within space, but space itself that was expanding at many times the speed of light. Okay. Yeah, that makes it awkward and difficult. And then there's the question of might it be a wraparound? Is it possible you could continue in one direction and then come back around the screen the other way?
Yeah, like time.
Well, it turns out, as Kaku explains, that couldn't be possible because of the time factors involved. It would take you longer than the age of the universe in order to make that track, because of the size of space relative to the speed of light.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's an interesting point. There isn't an edge out there. There isn't something we're going to simply fall off of.
Yeah. It just keeps expanding.
Okay, here are the debate topics that I threw out there. I'm sure you folks have interesting things to say on them. I think we may have exhausted the first one, actually. What's going to happen in 2029? Now, you've listened to a number of speakers. Let's scroll down and take a look at them so we know whom we're talking about. Who do you feel is the best speaker of those that we've been listening to? Here we've got Neil deGrasse Tyson. You've seen him before, and you've probably heard about him in all kinds of places. Kurzweil you may not have come across before. Pretty good speaker, certainly knowledgeable in his subject area, has written a number of books, some of which I have acquired within the last week and intend to look at more. Then we also had other speakers that were not pictured here. Who were the speakers in this? Let's see, at the end of this one, where is it?
Freedom of speech?
Here, it's after Berlinski and King Darwin. We had this. We had another one. The one with three on either side, And that was
Oh,
amazing to
yeah.
have so many amazing speakers at the same time. And on the one side, we had Hitchens, Dawkins, and Grayling, and on the other side, Spivey, the rabbi whose name I keep forgetting, and Scruton. Now, when you listen to this discussion between two American academics, stellar American academics, and compare it to the discussion between the lot that we had in this this theological debate here, how did those compare to you?
I think the one on the evolution and theology was better because when you're debating on serious topics like this, the only way to be successful in this and to get far is, well, you're kind of forced to learn how to convey a point and convey it clearly without any confusion.
Nicely put. Nicely put. I like the way you present that. In fact, the way you presented that, I felt in a way surpassed what these two were doing.
Yeah.
They know their subject matter, but
They kept going.
Tyson kept on interrupting, which I thought was so irritating because Kurzweil had so many wonderful things to say and got interrupted in the middle of them sometimes. But they were using American slang. I mean, it's not very slangy. After all, they are educated, but the tendency to fill your sentences up with like, the tendency to start one sentence and then finish a different one, and they don't link together. This is a very common factor in American speech. And here there is the assumption, always the assumption that, oh, but we're allowed to do that when we're speaking in an improvisatory setting. You're not allowed to do it on paper, of course, but they're two different animals. And of course, that's one of the reasons nobody can write, is you've heard it being used wrong in an improvisatory setting all the time. And you listen to these, you'll hear the mistakes, not frequent, and in general they handle their language very, very well, but it doesn't approach what we find in this one. And indeed, one of the things I'd like you to think about, Nicholas, if you were to transcribe the presentation that you did today and then analyze it and edit it, how much editing would it require? You see what I mean? That in a way, that's the goal. We want to reach a level of erudition at which it's possible to improvise language which can be described directly and go straight into print. Okay. Who, again, which one do you think was the best orator?
Probably the one where they debate about Darwinism.
Which one?
The one where with David Berlinski.
Okay. Well, do you think Berlinski himself?
I don't quite remember because I can't associate all the names, but
Yeah. Okay. It's a little hard. Yeah. Berlinski is superb. His language is wonderful. He was arguing. He wasn't directly arguing against Dawkins. They were separate presentations. Dawkins is good, no question about it. He would not make American sloppy mistakes.
Why are all these scholars or orators, why are they all good?
Because I don't want to give you any bad ones.
No, I mean, Dawkins, Berlinski, they're all educated. Well, everyone's educated, but they're all superior.
Well, this is skewed. There's no question about it. It's skewed by the fact that this is the level of language I want you to hear, get in your ears, and then be able to use on paper. There are plenty of speakers who do not come up to this level, and I don't see much point in assigning them. I would certainly appreciate your help in finding more. good ones. The one I still think in this particular batch was the best was Hitchens. If you listen to Hitchens, his was the beginning of the theology. Of course, he's terribly anti-theology. But if you listen closely to how he put his language together, and note that it was entirely improvisatory, he had no notes in front of him. Or if he did have notes in front of him, they were just notes. He wasn't reading any. It was superb, and he had exactly the right word over and over again, and so many of them, giving one a wonderful flavor for what he was describing. Absolutely amazing command. Now, I remember at his eulogy, which he wasn't quite dead yet, it was sort of a parentation, a panegyric, if you'd like, before he died, handled by Stephen Fry. And Fry described him as being perhaps the greatest orator since Demosthenes, who was presumably a great orator in ancient Greece. Now, that's a wonderful praise to put on anyone. And I think a lot of people, including me, would disagree with it. I think Fry himself is actually superior. And if I could manage to find material that he presents that doesn't degenerate into gutter humor and so forth, then I would give you more. But that's one of the problems I have with his material. But yeah, I thought Hitchens, if you just listen to it closely, Grayling is wonderful. So is Scruton. They all do a terrific job, but Hitchens is really stellar. And, in this particular case, not always. Okay, now we've got logic, and Nicholas was going to give us some logic puzzles.
And I did.
You did?
Yes.
Have you posted some online?
Yes.
Oh, where are they?
There's a forum. Not this.
Wait, which forum are we at?
Scroll down a little bit. I think it's the open chat forum.
Chat forum is just a chat room. It's not a forum. As
Then general discussions, I think.
Okay. Okay, that was this morning.
Yeah.
Okay, wonderful.
And I found an error with the website I have. When I first logged on this morning, it said that Andrew had posted his assignment in 1 in the morning. And if I were to refresh the page, each minute that goes by, it changes the time that he posted it. So when I logged on, say at 10 o'clock, it said he posted at 1 a.m. Then 15 minutes later, if I refresh the page, it'd say he posted at 1:15.
Clever.
Then later at 1 o'clock, it said he posted at 5 or something.
Yeah. Well, it's easy enough to write a program that's going to do that.
Yeah.
And if you'd like, I'll show you how to do it. But it's disingenuous.
It's glitchy.
I mean, it's deceptive. Okay, let's take a look and see what we've got there. I haven't seen these, and so I'm not sure we want to take a lot of class time to figure them out. That's why I thought it'd be
It won't
nice to
take
see
that
them ahead
long.
of
We
time.
have.
All right. Buses 1, 2, and 3 make one trip each day, and they are the only ones that riders A, B, C, D, E, F, and G take to work. Neither E nor G takes bus 1 on day when B does. G does not take a bus on a day when D does, and A and F will take the same bus. It is always bus 3. C always takes bus. Oh, good grief. I'm not going to try to.
That's gonna take a while to solve.
I couldn't figure that one out.
Okay. There are different ways to approach this kind of thing, but generally it will involve linking them together, very much like the sorites, so that you can say, if this, then that, and then the that may be the this in the next one. And so you have a number of causal relationships. And I don't think I'm going to be able to jump in and do anything really intelligent with this. What's the answer? What's the question? Traveling together to work, B, C, and G could take which of the same buses on a given day?
B, C, G.
Plus 3. Is there an answer key? Or?
Can't be A. Well, we've got one that really pins the whole thing down, and that is C always takes bus 3, and traveling together, B, C, and G could take which of the same buses on a given day?
I have an answer key at home.
It looks to me as though
Yeah, I think
C is the only one that would work there.
And all the rest is like fluff.
I was thinking B.
Right. It could have been made much more difficult than this if you had an A implies B implies C implies D. But in this particular case, we've got something up there that says C never takes any other bus than number 3, and if C is one of the characters here, then it has to be
the only one.
has to be that one. But you see, this, let me give you a little hint. As a teacher, this is a wonderful kind of question to be able to put together. Because when you, a lot of people, for some reason, don't like multiple choice questions. But the fact is, multiple choice question can be made as easy or as difficult as you want it to be. And if you want your class suddenly to do well at the end of a semester, when they did rather a mediocre job towards the beginning of the semester, thus proving progress, then you can put together a test which actually is simple. And yet it asks the same question, you just have to ask them differently and have different answers. I mean, if I were to ask what is 2 plus 2, and or to do something more complex perhaps than that. And then I have answers like Thursday, the Renaissance. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
Anyway.
The Renaissance Fair? Well, where'd you get that?
I'm just off the top of my head.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to go to a Renaissance Fair.
Which one?
Over there by the dam.
Yeah. That's where it is now.
Yeah. Whenever the next one is.
It'll be in May because it's a
Yeah.
May fair. And because it's become terribly commercial and they make money off of it, they keep on expanding it. So it goes into, it sort of seeps into April and into June as well. But it's a May fair, so it takes place in May. Do you know the history of it?
No.
It was really a very different kind of affair when it took place in Agura out in that direction in the 70s. And it evolved, and I'm afraid it just degenerated largely. Thank you for presenting this interesting idea. Are you familiar with the lady and the tiger problems?
No.
There's a fellow named Smolyan who wrote a number of books on logical puzzles. And if you're interested, I'll bring some in that we can look at. But before we do that, why don't we go ahead and look a little bit at Lewis Carroll's logical sorites.
Okay.
They start fairly easily.
Okay.
And then they get trickier and trickier as we go on. Basically, these are I always have trouble finding the words. These are syllogisms. And a syllogism is a straightforward set of definitions that draws one to a conclusion. And it's usually something like, all cats are green. This is a cat, therefore it's green. Okay, we've got a premise, which as you probably may not agree with, that all cats are green, but that's not important. We've got an assertion, and adopting that assertion as our starting point, as one of our axioms, we can draw a reasonable conclusion. What Lewis Carroll is doing here, and by the way, there are all kinds of other little saying that not all this are that, all this aren't that, and so far. We've got various different ways to do that, and all kinds of logical names for the different relationships. But the ones he's presenting here are fairly solid. We've got this is that, this is that, and this is that. What we need to realize here, he's not going to leave us with just 3. He's going to go on to create 4 and 5 and 6 and 7. And then you have to figure out how to string them all together. Babies are illogical. Nobody is despised who can manage a crocodile. I just love his examples. I mean, this is demonstrates he had a wonderful level of whimsy to him. Illogical persons are despised. Now, what we need to do is figure out where the ends are. This one, number 3, is in the middle. And he deliberately mixes them up so that it's hard to tell where they are.
Yeah.
Babies appear only once, and crocodiles appear only once. And so we know those are the ends. And so something has to do with babies starts out and ends up with crocodile at the end. So if babies are illogical, and illogical persons are despised, therefore babies are despised. Well, we know that's not true, but it doesn't matter. That's the premises. So babies are despised, and nobody who's despised can manage a crocodile. Therefore,
Babies are babies.
Illogical persons in this case?
babies can't manage crocodiles.
Oh.
Okay. Okay. You get the idea. Okay. Now I'm going to leave. I don't want to waste a lot of time with these. I'm going to leave you with them. But let's go down here and. Everything not absolutely ugly may be kept in a drawing room. Nothing that is encrusted with salt is ever quite dry. Nothing should be kept in a drawing room unless it is free from damp. Bathing machines are always kept near the sea. You see what I mean? I'll let you try to figure these out.
Yeah.
Okay, I think you'll enjoy them. You know what a bathing machine is?
A pool?
No, it
Shower?
isn't. It's actually sort of a little outhouse. Well, it's sort of a little changing room that people would carry around, or at least servants tended to carry them down to the sea so that the person could go bathing and then come back and change in the little room without having to go anywhere else. I'll find some pictures for you. But they
don't have those anymore.
No, they don't much. But they play an important role in literature. And I can give you a few examples of that. The hunting of the snark. Has anybody heard of that?
I think I have, but I don't really recall what it is.
Do you know who wrote it? Lewis Carroll, the one
Yeah,
who
it was
wrote
Lewis
this.
Carroll, the guy who did Alice.
It's a fascinating thing, and it's a number of odd characters hunting this strange beast, and yet it has nothing to do with people hunting a beast. It ends up going off in all kinds of other directions. But at one point we are told, okay, here's how to tell a snark when you find one. The first thing is the taste, which is meager and hollow, but crisp. I mean, this is not something you find on a field guide, looking around for something that tastes meager and hollow but crisp. And it carries around with it bathing machines, which it seems to feel adds to the beauty of scenes. A sentiment open to doubt. This is Anyway, it's a very strange poem, but
Yeah.
one that you might enjoy if you enjoy really odd whimsy.
Mhm.
But that's what that's all about. So go ahead and take a look at that if you have any interest in it, and I'll bring in Snark if you're interested. Okay, let's go back here. We have the war poetry for discussion. Oh, good grief. We're running out of time. It took us a long time to get started today. Have you all read the war poetry?
No.
I've read the first two, I believe.
People aren't doing that.
Lions versus.
Okay, well, let's go back to our agenda here, and I'd like to, I feel consisting that the homework is worth looking at.
Yeah.
And I also feel like asking whether you need more. But somehow,
I gotta.
I think you have more than you're getting to. Does anybody have any other interest in these? To what extent does freedom of speech exist at present?
Uh,
Yeah, that's true.
that's an interesting
That was
topic
a-
because there's so much garbage thrown around where people say, "Oh, I have freedom of speech, so I can say this."
But then again,
That's-
there's people who are getting way too offended over the littlest things, and so people are forced to restrict speech.
Yeah.
And that was discussed in one of the videos you gave us.
Exactly. Did you get a chance?
Hypocrisy.
Let me go back and look at this and make sure that you've had a chance to look at these things.
Mhm.
I added one in here, perspectives on freedom of speech. Did you all see these?
Yes.
Yes.
Good. That's something we can look at that. The first one was Roger Scruton. You've met him before. He was on one side of that debate, and he made some very good points. Who was number two?
Was that the hour-long one? Or was that?
No, that was probably no more than about 10 minutes.
I don't remember, but he was like in front of a booth or something.
It was somebody in front of a booth. You're absolutely right. Did anybody recognize who it was? Interesting. Okay. He doesn't appear much in here. I wish I had more material that I could give you that had his things. We have Roger Scruton there. And Rowan Atkinson. You ever heard of Mr. Bean?
Yes.
That's him. Although in Mr. Bean, of course, he never says anything,
Yeah.
or rarely. But he's a fascinating character. Very shy. He's not interested in getting out and talking very much, but he uses superb language.
What's he doing there? He should be in movies and stuff.
Well, he is in movies and stuff. He was the star of Blackadder, which was a long series that went on, and he's been in a number of other things, and he feels strongly about the freedom of speech. He had a comic commentary on current events at one point. He was a major player in what was called Not the 9 O'Clock News, which ran for a number of years earlier on, to which he refers in this. But the interesting thing is he's highly educated. He got a master's degree in electrical engineering from Oxford University, which he never did anything with, but went on to do these different shows. But his oratory here, it is read, it is scripted, but it is beautifully done. What do you think of his conclusions?
That we shouldn't be so limited to the speech we have nowadays. Like people should be getting less offended.
Sort of. What was the real point that he ended up with? He was saying that there's no question that there is offensive speech out there, and there are offensive things one can say. What is the solution that he's presenting to that?
Don't pay attention to it.
More speech.
Or
And say, we can't just, pass some sort of a law saying you're not allowed to say such a thing.
Yeah.
He starts out by saying he feels exempt. He's not worried about himself. And indeed, nobody's going to start giving him trouble. That would be a major splash all over the news if that were to happen. He's not worried about himself. But indeed, the fact that law enforcement seems to feel some sort of a duty to come down on people if there is a law that restricts speech in one way or another.
Yeah.
So he's maintaining there should be no law, but if there's something that is offensive, we should be looking at it and considering it and giving it or avoiding it one way or another.
Yeah. At Irvine or Berkeley, temporarily for a week, there was a small freedom of speech zone. Literally, it had signs saying freedom of speech. No one can get offended in this zone. It's more like a box.
It's a wonderful idea. They have one, and it's in London. It's called Hyde Park Corner, where presumably anybody who wants to can get up on a box and speak. And it's a wonderful idea.
Yeah.
I think it's great. I wish it were there were a tab covering it. Okay. Did anybody watch this one?
Yes.
Despite the fact that I told you not to. Okay.
Wait, what?
Well, I said on second thought, you better not watch this one at all.
Oh,
because of
Okay.
the offensive vocabulary.
Yeah, offensive vocabulary. Yes, I feel that I am indemnified and exculpated from any injury you might encounter by telling you not to watch it in the first
Yeah.
place. Okay, tell me what you thought.
I thought it was pretty cool. Again, they also talked about how especially religious people are getting offended over stereotypes about their beliefs.
Mhm.
And Christopher Hitchens said that people should again just not care about what others say, and instead of becoming offended, come up with something intelligent to respond with.
Mhm.
So,
yeah, and I think one of them also said that stereotypical. I think it was Hitchens. I think he said that stereotypical is it's based on a certain truth. Yeah.
I'm not sure I follow nor remember what you're referring to
Well,
there.
being stereotypical, I mean,
What
it
does
is based
stereotypical
on
mean?
it's based on a certain truth. It's being stereotypical is kind of like
Let's look at the definition of
categorized,
stereotypical.
yeah.
What does it mean?
I'm dying here.
It's an adjectival form of stereotype. What is a stereotype?
Yeah.
It is an assumed standard that exists, something expected and anticipated and generally unwavering from some expectation.
Mhm.
And so stereotypical is something that one would expect and expect not to vary.
A widely held but fixed and oversimplified image or idea
Oversimplified image and idea. That's a nice thing.
of a particular type of person, I think.
Right.
So it's based on truth to some extent.
It may indeed, but usually it's an oversimplification.
Yeah.
Usually it's something that doesn't really agree with reality. It just agrees with reality the way some people would like to think of reality. Okay. Yeah. Now, they make some amazing points. This is entirely unscripted, and there was a moderator who tried to keep them on track unsuccessfully all the time. But they do get a chance to show off very effectively. Okay, and Scruton's, of course, was decent here. Okay, I'm glad you got a chance to see these. Remind me again what you need more of. And let me
Okay.
verify also
Oh,
that we
spring
have no
break.
class tomorrow.
Do you
Or
want to
liquid.
keep these? Or?
You can
Oh.
keep them. I mean, you may find something interesting.
All right.
Okay.
Eventually,
By the
you
way,
will
if you're going
talk
to do that sort of thing, bringing them in and handing them out is fine. But you
Okay.
could just cut and paste them into the classroom so we could put them up on screen.
I was thinking about doing that, but I didn't know. I wasn't sure.
It's very easy to do. And
Okay.
if you don't want to put it in the writer's forum, put it in the open forum or something.
Okay.
Okay,
So,
so
yeah,
I'm
next
assuming
week.
next week we don't have class. I'm going to verify that. Please check the mailing that comes out for news on whether we have class next week.
Okay.
All right.
Any requests? You sure you don't need a whole lot more videos to watch? Or would you rather have books to read?
I think I
Um,
participate more when there are videos to
I'm
engage with.
I'm already reading a 1,400-page book, so The Count of Monte Cristo. Still reading that.
It's a good book, but it's in translation. That's part of the problem. You're reading a translator. You're not reading. So,
I'm a bit busy reading a bunch of textbooks for school.
yeah. Well, that's fine and understandable. Sorry, I don't want to keep you folks, but I do want to establish what we need to do next time. Please look at the poetry.
Yes.
The poems that I put together. And one of the big questions at the end, of course, is we talk about the Revolutionary War. Now, I'm talking here about the American Revolution, not the revolution that took place after the French Revolution, which is what that paper was about. And what was the cause of the Revolutionary War? And who was it who put together the founding ideas and documents, which were the inspiration for the Declaration of Independence? Anyway, think about that and we'll look at it next time. Do we have class next week? No. Okay, so that solves that one.
Nothing
I
here.
will send out notes and just keep track of things and we'll see you in 2 weeks.
Okay.
Make sure you do all the reading this time, okay?
You're late. Quick, go.
Have a good holiday, folks.
Have fun. All right. Cincy. Bye. Another hour and a half gone.
It went so fast. Well, it took long to get started, but it was so late arriving. And my the two students who really handed in the biggest papers didn't come. So anyway, I'm going to officially bring this to a close. We're still on the air.